Hey, hello, and welcome to the OnStage Colorado Podcast. Once again, I'm Alex Miller, and here with me, as usual, is arts reporter Toni Tresca. Hey, Toni.
Good morning, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, we're recording on Monday, August 19th, so we're still basking in the glow of some of the shows we've seen that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And we're going to talk about some shows that we're going to see, shows we think you could see or should see or not. And later in the conversation, we have an interview with playwright Kirsten Dahl, whose new play Della, Doucet is having its world premiere at Vintage Theater opening this Friday. So it was really fun. I love talking to playwrights, and she was really interesting conversation about the path of this play to the stage, which is always a great story to listen to. So.
Absolutely. Always cool to hear about the play and the words of the playwright who wrote the words of the play.
Yep. And, it's one of those things where everything starts with a script. It may seem obvious, but and this is like especially true. Like I think a lot of times with movies and TV, where they think if they throw all kinds of other stuff at it, or they've got big stars or whatever, but it's like if the script isn't good, it's not crap. So it always starts with the writer. So that's coming up in a little bit. What we've seen recently. So I don't know. I was going to go see one show that I had to change my plans, but I did go out and see School of Rock at Miners Alley Playhouse, which we'd reviewed earlier this month. That Eric Fitzgerald reviewed it, but I wanted to check it out, and there was also a Colorado Theater Guild little get together afterwards that I wanted to check out. So it's a fantastic production of School of Rock, and like you said, the smaller stage really adds to really intimate performance. That stage, the theater there at Miners Alley is just there is not a bad seat in the house, and they've really got the. I think, I was talking to Len Matteo, the artistic director, a little bit afterwards, and he said, even after, a couple of weeks, we're still dialing in the sound, because that is a tricky show to do sound on, because you get two different bands on stage, and they've got all the equipment and they know how to do it. So I think they're pretty close, and a great cast and all of that. So fun, lots of fun.
That is a great production over there. You've still got a little bit of time to check that one out too. So I'd really recommend you get out and see John Hauser, who's leading the show over there, and the rest of the team. It's a really, really fun, spirited production.
Yeah. I was saying to Len afterwards. I just said, John Hauser is just a treasure. I mean, he can do so many things. And he can sing, play guitar. He also does light design and some sound
design.
Yeah. He's a Renaissance man. It's always great to see him on stage, and it was a great cast.
And how was the Colorado Theater Guild barbecue afterwards? I had to miss that. I was disappointed.
Yeah, it was fun to see some of the folks that came out for that. Although it did start to kind of rain, it was sort of, it was.
Oh no!
But at least there you've got the option to kind of duck inside, and they had the bar open and stuff. So it was fun to see some of the theater folks I don't often see, especially the Theater Guild folks. So they're trying to get out in the community a little bit more and meet people, but it's tough. Theater people are really hard to round up, just because you never know when rehearsals. This is why a lot of times, they're doing stuff on Mondays, because Monday tends to be a dark night for theater. But it's definitely worth the effort on their part to try and get people together.
And I saw two different shows this weekend. I made it over to the opening night of Shifted Lens's theater company's production of Cruel Intentions, the 90s musical, which was being staged at the People's Building. Yeah, so this is kind of a really irreverent, raunchy musical that's about these two step siblings who kind of want to get it on, but also want to get it on with everybody else at their private school in New York. And so you're just watching these really kind of bad blokes sing along to songs from the 90s, because it's a jukebox musical, as all of these like interweaving tales of betrayal and deceit kind of come together. The show itself is really raunchy and out there. So if you're somebody who gets offended easily, maybe don't see this. Actually, maybe you might want to see something else, because they really do a nice job at leaning into that irreverent tone that makes the movie so iconic. and this was their Shifted Lens's first production. They're kind of a new immersive company. There wasn't a ton of immersive elements with this production, but overall, I thought the casting was really good. And this is one of the best uses of the People's Building I think I've ever seen. They've got it. They're not using the stadium style seatings. They've set up their own chairs and have kind of put the audience pretty much in the middle of the action, which is really cool for this very action packed musical.
Uh-huh. And did they have a band or were they using a soundtrack?
Oh, yeah. They had a live 4-person band on stage with the cast the full time. And that was really fun. It was really excellent musicians, too. People who you've seen playing at the Arvada Center or the Denver Center for the Performing Arts before. So it's real talent in that band back there. And they sounded excellent. Every now and then, I was there opening night, the band was mixed a little bit hot. They were a little bit too loud. And so they kind of overpowered the performances, the vocal performances, particularly in some of the ballads and those softer moments. But they sounded incredible.
Uh-huh. Great. So for Cruel Intentions, like what's one example of a song from the 90s that's in that show that would people would know?
Genie in a Bottle is a great one in there. I'm Just a Girl. They've got a bunch of stuff from the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. Ace of Base is in there. There's a little bit of Britney. So there's songs you recognize. Even if the 90s weren't your era, you probably have heard these songs before.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds like a fun one. And then you got out to see the Bonfield Skull too, right?
I did. So this was at the historic Elitch Theater. It's the return to live theater programming after about just over 30 years in the space. Yeah, I want to hear about this. It's been pretty dormant since 1991. And so they're finally letting everybody in to see the refurbishments that they've done over there. And it was beautiful. The Elitch Theater is this massive, it's like roughly 700 seats in there, a little bit over that. And it's got this cool classical architecture style with a wraparound balcony up at the top. The theater itself, the stage is very cool. They've got a bunch of different modern technologies in there. Although not a ton of air conditioning, I would say. So it was quite hot. Quite hot in this space. Me and everybody else in the theater. I was so grateful that they had paper programs so that we could use them as fans because it was a little bit warm in there. I'm not going to lie to you, but it was because it was pretty much sold out for the Bonfield Girls, which was insane. Wow. I was like, yeah, Mike Brommel, who is the author of the play, had mentioned to me that they had been selling really, really well over there, and that's why they had added an additional performance, but I didn't know how much of that was just like PR marketing speak to hype the show up and how much was truth, but it was sold. It was very, very well sold and attended. The original actress who was supposed to play Helen and who had played her over at the Denver Center art complex a month ago, she actually had gotten sick. And so and between the time, and so she wasn't able to perform, but the director, Selena Knockoff, she stepped into the role, and so she did a really, really excellent job bringing this character to life, particularly on kind of a short notice and short turnaround like that. Because she had to learn the entire script in under a month.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, those are the things you have to do in theater sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think of the show in general? It's a one-hander. Was it good? I've heard kind of not the greatest things about it. So
I was hoping you weren't going to ask that question.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah, it was not my favorite script. It was incredibly talky, and it felt more like reading a Wikipedia summary of Helen Bonfie's life than it did an embodied theatrical experience. Like, I learned a lot about Helen. I know a whole heck of a lot more about her life and kind of the factual evidence, but I don't know if I really have a better understanding of Helen as like a person, and it certainly wasn't very theatrical in how it presented the setting. It really is just, she's already dead, and she's just talking at you from the grave.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard someone also had said that, the real interesting story is the feud between her and her sister, and it's like somebody needs to do a play about that.
Yeah, I would agree. When I talked with Mike about it, he didn't want to do that because there's the speculation with the feud between the sisters is kind of more gossip than actual fact. There's not a ton of like actual evidence to support that feud. But I think you're right. It would make a more interesting narrative to see presented on stage.
Yeah, it's fascinating because they hated each other so much, and they both had shit tons of money, and so they were trying to out philanthropy each other to, of course, Denver's benefit. But it's a very unusual story.
Yeah, they've got rival foundations. That much is 100% factually confirmed. And they were constantly doing very similar projects to kind of one-up each other. That's all true. There's not like there's, to my knowledge and Mike's knowledge as well, there aren't any like a bunch of like hard evidence. There's no quotes from either sister kind of attacking each other or written letters and stuff. But you can, if you're reading
totally
in between
make
the
up
lines.
that stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Great. What else?
Before we head on to our main topic, I want to reach into our global fan base mailbag and pull out a letter. We've got one new comment from Linda Gooch, who on our episode from August 6th about new venues and featuring your interview with folks from the Colorado Community Theater Coalition.
Oh, yeah.
Linda comments, loved listening to the Colorado Theater Coalition information. I was on the board and still keep in contact with Brad. I was so glad to hear all of the workshops and companies involved this year. Thank you for your support of CCTC. So thank you so much, Linda. We love hyping up the Colorado Community Theater Coalition, and we're so grateful that you enjoyed listening to that episode and all the information.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for weighing in on that. So, I usually introduce it at the top of the show, but I just realized I didn't. But our main topic this week is fall theater. So, as it's late August now, it means that summer shows are starting to wind down as the fall ones pop up like daisies, or I don't know what's a flower that pops up in the fall, or maybe they're coming down like leaves. Forget about
it. That's a better analogy. I like that one. I was totally blanking on flowers that pop up in the fall.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know, colorful ones.
Yeah, I don't know. But the main point is there's a ton of new theater coming our way. So, I think there's so much that I think we're going to stick mostly just kind of September, but it gives you an idea of what's coming up.
Yeah, September peeking into October with a couple of maybe shout outs of the stuff coming down the pike if they sounded really exciting, because a ton of theaters are kicking off their seasons in the fall, and the first show that they present is usually a big one. They're something that they're kind of excited about. So we decided that we would take a look at what's in store, and rather than starting in the Denver metro area, as we so often do, we're going to start outside the Front Range this time.
Oh, I love it. So, fall theater also corresponds with leaf peeping season in the mountains. So it's a great time to get up into the hills to hike and peep and see some theater. So, we'll look at September and into October. And, there's definitely, there's not a ton going on in the mountains right now. Cause when I always think of like Theater Silco and Breckenridge Backstage as kind of the two, and they're a little quiet this fall. But what else? What else can we talk about?
I guess first, kind of wrap up the summer offerings. A couple of the summer rep theater companies still have some shows that will be playing through September. So Creed Repertory Theater goes through September 14th, when that will be the closing of Prima's Guide to Funerals, and Baskerville, While the Importance of Being Earnest, closes on September 8th. So if you're hoping to catch any of those shows, I've heard really good thing about Prima's Guide to Funerals. I don't have a helicopter, so I've not made it out myself, but I'd love to see that produced in the Denver area someday. But yeah, those are a couple of the offerings over in the repertory space.
Yeah, and they have their Boomtown Improv that goes a little bit. I think they have one more performance of that goes on the 21st, and then Creed goes back to being a sleepy little town as the snows of winter cover the land. So, but also down south, the Durango Arts Repertory Theater is doing the ever popular thriller Wait Until Dark from September 13th through 29th at the Durango Arts Center.
Yeah, and then down in Pueblo, the Merrily Players open the very popular The Book of Will on September 27th, which will run through October 6th. That one's been getting a lot of play around Colorado recently. I have not actually seen it though. Have you seen The Book of Will?
No. It's weird that neither of us have seen that one, because it's definitely being done. So Merrily Players have been at it for a while down there in Pueblo, and I actually had a nice note from Mona at Merrily Players saying that she would love to have us come down there sometime. So we'll have to try and get down Pueblo and see what Merely Players is up to. So also in Grand Lake, Rocky Mountain Repertory finishes out its summer season with the show Homage to Tony Bennett, I Left My Heart. And so that plays through September 28th. And so if we look around the Colorado Springs, what's going on there?
Yeah, there's quite a bit going on in and around the spring. So first off, over at the Fine Arts Center at Colorado College, they're kicking off their season with Dial M for Murder on September 19th, which will run through October 6th. And then over at the Ent Center at Colorado Springs, Theater Works is kicking off its 2024-2025 season with a Bardorama trifecta something with 3 plays moshed into one. So this is combining Henry IV Part 1 and 2 and 5. And it's adapted and directed by Max Schulman, who is a professor there at CU Colorado Springs, which when I read that, I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of Shakespeare histories for just one show.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but if Shakespeare histories are really hard to sit through, I mean, there's a reason I've not done that all that often, but it says here that this is a fast-paced 2.5 hours. So Max has definitely tailored it for modern audiences and cut out some of the if there's any fat in there in Hank 4 and 5. So that sounds like a pretty interesting thing to check out. So yeah. Another one theater's always doing interesting things is Springs Ensemble Theater. So they're doing a production of Yasmina Rez's very funny comedy God of Carnage that runs September 19th through October 6th. Have you ever seen that one, Tony?
I can't say that I have. What is God of Carnage about?
It's about it's been a little while since I've seen it, but I believe it's about it's 2 kids that get in a fight at this private school and the parents coming in to battle it out over who started it. And there's all kinds of really PC, stuff. And it just turns into this just outrageous fight between these 2 sets of parents with the teacher in the middle. It's a great show. So I'm sure Seth will do a great job with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before moving on out of this area, we can't forget about Iron Springs. How do you say that?
Chateau.
Okay. And before we move out of the Springs, we can't forget about Iron Springs Chateau in the nearby Manitou Springs, whose melodrama Star Quest, or To Boldly Go Where No Joke Has Gone Before, continues all the way through October 1st. So that's definitely a Colorado theater with some of the silliest show titles I've ever had the pleasure of reading.
I know. And they take up a lot of extra room in the calendar, too. So I wish they'd strip them down, but they're funny. So, let's head up north to see what's going on up in Fort Collins. Bob Blue is doing the School for Lies. So this is one of my favorite playwrights is David Ives. He's just one of these playwrights who's just really, really gifted with words, which sounds like, aren't all playwrights, but he's got a real particular style of how he writes his scripts. And so this one's based on Moliere's The Misanthrope, and it's entirely in rhyming couplets. So Ives is the kind of guy who can pull that off. So this one, I think I'm going to make the trek up to Fort Collins, and I-25 be damned. I'm going to go see this one. So looking forward to it.
I love that. Yeah. I saw a production of The Misanthrope earlier this year over at Theater Company of Lafayette. It's a very modern piece. I mean, even though it was written in the 17th or 18th century by Moliere. Is School for Lies, is it a contemporary adaptation, or is it stick with the classical setting? Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So, but yeah, it's a even the original is a funny play. I saw it like a million years ago in New York City and remember it well. So.
Yeah. So also up in the Fort Collins area, also known as Fort Fun, in late September, OnStage and a company kicks off their new season on September 27th with October Surprise. This is a world premiere by Miguel Munoz about a Texas Senate race, a crisis at the border, some sibling rivalry, and political intrigue. Sounds perfect for the election season.
Yeah, and with that Texas thing, I think this one sounds like one you maybe should go check out, Tony.
Honestly, yeah, I was like, I've worked on Texas Senate campaigns before. I know the October surprise expression well. We all feared it in the office. So yeah, I think I definitely will head up to OpenStage and Company to see this one. It sounds really cool.
Yeah. Let me know. Maybe I'll head up there with you. Make the trek.
Sounds good. We could maybe do a double feature. Hit up both the Fort Collins shows. That
I think are they both happening around the same time? We'll have to look. So also in the northern neck of the woods, Jester's Dinner Theater is taking a little break from their usual, some of their sillier stuff in Longmont and doing Fiddler on the Roof. And they're doing it September 6th all the way into early September. So if you got a hankering for a little Tevye, there's plenty of opportunities to check that out. And then the other famous dinner theater north of town, Candlelight in Johnstown, also home to that crazy new gas station. What the hell's it called again?
Buc-ee's.
So their High School Musical is up and running now, and that runs through September 8th. And then they'll open Always Patsy Cline September 19th, and that'll go through November 10th. And I don't know. It just seems to me like everybody would have seen that who hasn't seen it already, but it's still a popular show. Have you ever seen Always Patsy Cline?
I can't say I have. I don't even know who Patsy Cline is.
She was like a 1950s, 60s era country singer. So
okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what Candlelight is doing. So well, let's talk about your corner of the world, Tony, the Boulder, Louisville, Lafayette area. What's happening?
Oh yeah, there's plenty going on over here. Let's start with Stockade by Local Theater Company. So this is they did this at their local lab this season, and it's a World War II story involving gay soldiers who met on Fire Island a few years after the war, where they're met by an outsider with a surprise. So this runs at the Dairy Arts Center September 26th through October 13th. It's the world premiere production by Andrew Rosendorf with Carlin Aquilin. I did see the reading of this at their local lab this year. And even though it was just a reading, you could already tell that so much research had been put into this play. It was steeped in history, and the narrative was really, really compelling. A couple of elements I would have tightened up, but I guess that's why they do the local lab, so they can get that feedback, so that when they do present the world premieres, it can be the best production possible.
Yeah, that one sounds really interesting. Also in the Boulder area, the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, Betsy, has two fall shows. Enemy of the People, so this is an oldie but a goodie by Henrik Ibsen, about a doctor standing up for truth, and also very resonant with today's, leaning towards autocracy and things like that. I was talking to Mark Reagan, who adapted this for Betsy and is also directing it, and he was just saying that, there was, it being an older play, there was a fair amount of stuff that he felt comfortable cutting out of it to make it a little more accessible for modern audiences. But he really felt strongly that this is a great play for our time to see again. So,
why has there ever been any instances in our recent time about a doctor being punished for speaking out about a medical emergency? Can you think of any off the top of your head?
No, but I don't know that Fauci ouchie comes to mind, but. Haven't heard that one in a while. Yeah. So they've also doing a show at the Savoy. So that one will be September 26th through October 13th at the Savoy in Denver, and then in November at the Dairy Arts Center. So it's kind of spans the metro area there. And they're also doing the Ballad of Paula Aguilar by Bernardo Cubria, October 17th through November 3rd. And this one will be in Boulder at the Dairy Arts Center. It's about a major unnamed political party that hires a university professor to help it stop the hemorrhaging of Hispanic voters. That sounds somewhat familiar as well.
Yeah, I wonder that this play maybe seemed a little bit more relevant back when Joe Biden was the nominee. I just was reading a piece in the New York Times earlier this week about how Kamala Harris has kind of turned that around with Hispanic voters. So the decline for the Democratic Party. So I'm still very curious to see this play, even if it is fictitious. But I was just thinking about that as I was looking at the season selection.
One of the perils of writing a play about current events is that they can sometimes change between when you wrote it and when it's on stage. But I'm sure that'll be a good one anyway.
Yeah. Also over at the Dairy Arts Center, Modus Theater is doing two performances of civic love stories on October 19th and November 23rd at the Dairy, featuring undocumented Coloradans and non-binary and trans leaders performing personal stories about their life with musical underscoring, followed by improv by the Modus Playback Theater Company. So those are always really cool events that Modus does. They're all real stories, and it just gets really, really personal over there. And I always find I learn something from attending those productions. The Spark in Boulder is doing something very, very different from that last entry. They're doing Carrie the Musical from October 4th through the 20th at their space there. I've never seen Carrie the Musical. I have heard that it is a notorious flop on Broadway when it opened. It did not run for very long, but it's kind of generated this incredible cult following. And now it's done pretty regularly during spooky season, which the Spark is continuing that trend.
All right. So the Spark is theater. Do they have their own theater company? Who's the production company for that one?
It's the Spark themselves. So they are a rentable space, but they also produce they produce shows themselves, as well as rent the space out to other producing companies. But this is one of their in-house productions.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then also in the Boulder area, CU Boulder's College of Music is doing the ever popular Heathers the Musical, based on that very famous Winona Ryder movie. This is going to be November 14th through the 17th at CU Music's theater buildings.
Okay. Short run, but worth checking out. Also, over in that area, Viva Theater, which is a theater company for older folks or seniors, I guess, is doing The Man Who Came to Dinner, a great play by Moss Hart and George Kaufman. They're doing it as a live radio show set in 1939, and that'll be at the Dairy October 25th through November 10th. And then in Lafayette, the Arts Hub is doing The Prom from October 11th through 20th. And also in Lafayette, Theater Company of Lafayette is doing a Twilight Zone parody, Serling Centennial, in honor of the 100th birthday of creator Rod Serling. That'll be later in October to 25th into November 10th.
I love the Twilight Zone. I did not realize it was the creator's 100th birthday, but
me neither.
Maybe a good reason to whip out some old episodes and then go see the parody.
Yeah, it is. It really is a great show, and it's even though it's very old and black and white and stuff, it's still all those solid. And they had a lot of really great writers creating those episodes back in the day.
Totally. And I know they recently tried to bring it back again with Jordan Peele involved, but I don't know. It just wasn't quite the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Black Mirror has kind of taken its place as a.
Oh, that's really, a good point.
Sort of a better modern version of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so keeping in, I guess, that kind of spooky vibes, Arts in the Open will be concluding its season. Arts in the Open is kind of an outdoor group that does productions on Chautauqua, in Chautauqua on the mountains over there. You hike it up, and so their final offering is Wicked Wanderings, which will be September 21st through October 27th, which promises to show just how dark the forest can be.
And potentially snowy that late into October. Yeah, so be prepared.
Oh yeah, I have been to an Arts in the Open production in which there was snow on the mountains. It's cool depending on the show, but it's also cool because it's snow.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're sitting down, you're walking around, so prepare accordingly for the weather. And we mentioned this one up at the top, but Miners Alley Playhouse's production of School of Rock was going to continue through September 15th. So you still got some time to head over to Golden to check that one out. And then they'll be opening Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Elusive Ear, directed by Heather Beasley, who's one of their new hires over there. That's going to be October 4th through November 10th. And it's recommended for middle schoolers and up. And this is yet another play that features your favorite character to watch a show about, Alex, Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were just talking the other day about certain, like, Peter Pan and Sherlock Holmes, and that's like, why won't this ever leave this one alone? But this one's for the kids, right? So
yeah,
I'll give it a pass. So
you'll allow it.
So we said there's not a lot going on in Summit County in the next month or so with the two big theaters up there, but Thunder River in Carbondale is doing What the Constitution Means to Me, September 15th to the 29th. If you haven't been up there, that's a nice time of year to get up to that part of the woods, that neck of the woods, that part of the state. there should be some leaf peeping to do, and Thunder River does a great job.
Yeah. I guess that now brings us to the Denver metro area. So I guess we'll start off our roundup of shows here in Denver with the Arvada Center's production of the musical Waitress with music by Sarah Bareilles. This opens October 30th and runs through October 13th. It's an all-local cast directed by artistic director over there, Len Collins. And yeah, I really love Waitress. I'm looking forward to seeing this one myself, just on a personal level.
Me too.
It's a lot of fun. And then over in the Black Box, starting September 27th, Dracula, a feminist revenge fantasy, really, runs through November 3rd. This is a freaking stacked cast, too. I was looking at it. It's got Annie Barber as Nina, Noelia Antweiler as Lucy, Gareth Stacks as Dr. Seward, Jeffrey Kent as Dracula, and Jessica Augustin as Renfield. And it's directed by Carolyn Howard, who did Colorado Shakespeare Festival's 2023 production of King Lear that I just thought was sensational there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this kind of kooky Kate Hamill-inspired version of Dracula.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that is a really stellar cast. So let's go check that one out. Well, let's look at the other big theater in town, a little place called the Denver Center. So the DCPA...
I think I've heard of that one.
The DCPA Theater Company kicks off its season with another little-known show that they're hoping to gain some attraction. It's called Hamlet. It's September 13th through October 6th.
Very indie.
So artistic director there, Chris Coleman, is directing this one in the Big Wolf Theater. And I think you know a little bit more about this than I do. It's some sort of an alternative telling of Hamlet, right?
Yeah, they're doing kind of a new take on Hamlet. Chris Coleman's pretty familiar with the material. He's played Hamlet before, kind of a couple of different productions. So he's really looking forward to kind of diving it in with that knowledge that he's had from those previous productions. And this is his first time directing. So he's no stranger to Shakespeare, but I'm curious to see what he does. I haven't gotten a ton of details yet on what those new elements are, but they were just like, you got to show up to see. So I guess we'll find out together.
All right. Yeah. Well, not his first time directing, but his first time directing Hamlet, I think is what you were saying.
That's right.
He's definitely directed a few other shows. That's
what I meant. I was like, definitely don't get it twisted. Chris Coleman, accomplished director. But I was meaning he had played Hamlet before, never directed it. Yeah. So yeah.
That's great. And then later in September, starting on the 27th, they have a show called I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, and that'll be at the Kilstrom. This is a comedy. And then another one called Avaz. It's an Iranian theme story, which is it's not something we often see, and that's October 4th through November 17th. And then they'll have the touring production of Kimberly Akimbo, September 22nd through October 5th. This is in a Denver Center Theater Company production. It's a touring production that'll be at the Buell. And then Hamilton returns for a long run starting October 16th. So Hamilton will be kicking around for about a month there if you want to see that one again or see for the first time.
Yeah, and kicking off what may be Curious Theater Company's final season in its current space on Acoma Street is POTUS, or Behind Every Great Dumbass Are 7 Women Trying to Keep Him Alive, which features an all-female cast and is directed by a leader over there, Jada Suzanne Dixon, and runs from September 7th through October 13th. I have seen POTUS before, but I will definitely be getting out to see POTUS again over here at Curious. This is the regional premiere here in the Denver area, so very excited to see what Curious does with this script.
Me too. I wanted to see it up at Thunder River, but I didn't get a chance, so I'll definitely check out this Curious production.
I know. Thunder River production, I just heard incredible things about it, and I was dying every time they would share social media pictures of the production.
Yeah.
Those were just killer. Also in the Denver area, we've got Firehouse Theater Company, which is doing The Girl on the Train, which is based on a book and movie this will be running October 5th through November 3rd. And it's a thriller directed by Julie K. Wolfe, who did last year's excellent production of Dracula for Firehouse. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how she sinks her teeth into this one.
Yeah, I haven't seen Girl on the Train either, so it sounds like a cool one.
I've read the book. It's a really excellent book. So I'm curious to see how they kind of dramatize it, because so much of the book really does take place in this train setting. So I imagine we're going to be getting getting a lot of train-inspired set design.
Yeah, great. All right, the small but mighty Cherry Creek Theater is doing The Mountaintop. This is a reimagining of the night before Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and this is October 25th through November 17th, and they perform at the Meisel Art Center in Denver. Family Theater Company, who currently has their fantastic production of Chorus Line up at the Denver Center, but they're going to be coming back with 2 shows in Rep at the People's Building in Aurora. One is The Glorious World of Crowns, Kinks, and Curls, running October 7th through 20th. This one's about the complicated relationship between Black women and their hair. And Funny as a Crutch, October 11th through 20th, which is billed as Saturday Night Live meets disability. And if there's any company that can poke fun at disability, it's Family.
Absolutely. And that's also, it's a cool concept for them to be doing shows in Rep like that before.
I don't know if they've done this before.
In Aurora.
Yeah.
I don't think they have. I don't quote me on that. I'm going to have to double check with the team, but it's a really cool thing. I think it'll be fun to see both of these shows. I'm with similar casts and whatnot in that space over there. So staying in the Aurora area for our next few picks, the Aurora Fox Art Center right across the street from the People's Building is doing Around the World in 80 Days, directed by its new-ish leader, Richard Cowden, October 5th through 27th. And I had said previously that I had not been over to the Aurora area to check out the new neon sign that they have installed. No, not true any longer. When I went to see Cruel Intentions, I made sure to peep outside when it was all lit up after the show, and oh my gosh, it just looks glorious with all their with the neon colors on the sign there. So really, really impressive. I'm glad they did that.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Richard Cowden started as the artistic director after the season had already been sort of baked in, so he didn't really have a hand in the season that he kind of oversaw. So this is his first season where he's it's more his lineup. So exciting to see what Richard brings to the picture there.
Absolutely. Vintage Theater, just up the road from the Aurora Fox, has multiple shows happening in the fall, as they are known to do. Vintage Theaters, they've got to be one of the companies that produces the most shows every year. That's always at least 10.
I believe they are.
Insanely impressive. So their first show up is the winner of its new play competition, Della Douce. Is that right?
Doucet.
Doucet.
Actually, when I spoke to the playwright, she said Doucet or Doucet, either one works. So you're safe there.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm safe. Excellent. So Della Doucet runs August 23rd through September 22nd. And as Alex mentioned at the top, we've got an interview with the playwright later in the episode, so be sure to stick around for that. Vintage has also got Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express, which is adapted by Ken Ludwig and features direction by artistic director Bernie Cardell. That will run September 20th through October 20th. And they're remounting Give 5 production of Murder for Two, direct over there from October 11th through November 17th. And you and I both absolutely adored this production of Murder for Two, directed by Julia Tobey. So I know I'm speaking for me here. I am very, very excited that they're remounting this and giving more people the chance to experience this impeccable two-hander.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know if I'd say like, don't miss it, but that's one you should really try to get to. It's a really impressive performance by two artists who, are both, musicians also. It's just it's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, in my neck of the woods down here on the southern side of the city, Parker Arts is going to be doing Nonsense. And is it Nonsense, a musical review?
Oh, I think it's just called Nonsense, but it is a musical review.
Okay. So this will be in the Schoolhouse, their smaller place, their smaller theater where we actually saw Murder for Two last year. And that'll be October 25th through November 17th. And then Lone Tree Art Center is doing $1 Million Quartet. So this is a not unfamiliar show that's been performed a few times around the state. And it's inspired by the lives of Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, and Elvis Presley. And they meet in this one session. I think it's Sun Studios back a million years ago. And that's October 17th through October 27th. And then Town Hall Arts Center in Littleton has 3 fall shows. The first one up is Jersey Boys, another one that's been definitely produced a lot. That's September 6th through October 6th. And then next up, they're doing a co-production with the Littleton Symphony Orchestra and Voices West with The Hunchback of Notre Dame, October 18th through 20th. And then this is what I'm really looking forward to. This is a show I performed in once, The Cannibal, the musical, October 25th through November 3rd. If you're not familiar, this was Trey Parker's college project, the South Park co-creator. When he was at the University of Colorado Boulder, he made this ridiculous movie called it was originally called Alfred Packer, the musical. So Alfred Packer was this famous character in Colorado history who got stuck in a snowstorm and wound up being tried for cannibalism. And this is just an absolutely ridiculous, raunchy, just really fun show that I would definitely try to get out to see if you haven't seen it.
I am definitely going to do my best to see it. This sounds right up my alley. I've never seen the movie though, or seen the musical, so I am very, very excited. Should I watch it before? Or
yeah,
do you think
if
I should
you can
go in
find
blind?
it, it's hard to find. I don't know if it's on any streaming services now, but I remember the last time I looked for it, I couldn't find it. But it's really fun to watch. Very raw.
Yeah, I'll scour streaming, and then if not, I may put on my pirate hat.
Okay.
Finally, we've got Performance Now with their production of Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. This is September 6th through 27th at the Lakewood Art Center. It's a great space. Performance Now, they're known for doing these big crowd-pleasing musicals, and I really love Joseph.
Joseph
it's got a great story.
A great musical. It really is great.
I am not crazy about Andrew Lloyd Webber, but this musical makes me understand why people love him. I'm like, okay, I get it. This is really fun. And then finally, Buntport, which will be announcing its new season soon, they promise. But first, they'll have The Critic there, which is a guest production by 1023 Productions. This will run from September 12th through 20th. The Critic is kind of a piece about local theater troupe who gets very anxious when they find out that their local critic is going to be coming to attend the show.
Yes, and as theater critics, we both determined that we need to go see this one. So,
absolutely, yeah, we kind of feel like we have to. I gotta see. So I will definitely be. I'm going to be there on opening night, the September 12th, to check out The Critic.
Doing a critique of the critique of The Critic will be very meta, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll write. Maybe that is a good idea, actually. But write it as meta. Interesting, Alex. You're giving me a lot to chew on here.
Okay.
So, Buntport's main stage season will be coming soon, but they promise it's going to include 2 world premiere productions, a remount of a Buntport favorite with Large Talking Raisins, and will be continuing their off-night programming, including rentals to companies like 1023 Productions, and their independently produced shows such as The Great Debate, Buntport TED Talks, The Enthusiasts, and The Narrators.
Great stuff. If you haven't been to Buntport, definitely go check them out. Pretty much anything going on there is worth the trip.
And that area has some of the best food in all of Denver and the Santa Fe Arts District, so you can have a great meal and then go see a great show.
Yep, for sure. All right, well, that's it for our fall theater roundup. What are you looking forward to? What did we miss? Let us know at info@onstagecolorado.com or blast us on social media or in the comment sections here on the podcast, on our website. All kinds of ways to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you about that or anything else. So in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with my interview with Kirsten, Dahl, and a few other things. OnStage Colorado is supported by the Aurora Fox Arts Center, celebrating its 40th anniversary September 7th with a season announcement celebration from 6 to 9 p.m. at the theater. Tickets are only $10 and can be purchased at aurorafoxartscenter.org. Support also comes from the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose upcoming season kicks off September 26th with Henry Ibsen's Enemy of the People, adapted by Mark Reagan. The show runs through October 13th at the Denver Savoy, and then again November 8th through 17th at the Dairy Center in Boulder. Tickets at betc.org. OnStage Colorado is sponsored by the Colorado Fine Arts Center at Colorado College. Tickets for their upcoming season are on sale now and include Dial M for Murder, The City Dog and the Prairie Dog, In Her Bones, and The Naked Mole Rat Gets Dressed. More at fac.colorado.college.edu. All right, we're back. So since we talked about so many upcoming shows in the previous segment, we're going to skip this week's Colorado headliners. But we can talk about a few other things that are coming up on our radar, shows I know that we'll be reviewing. So I'm going to be at a show called Circling, and this is from another new theater company called Denver Theater Ensemble, and they'll be performing this at DU's White Box Theater. And this is a new play by Jenny Lynn Bader. So looking forward to checking that one out. Eric will be at the aforementioned Della Doucet, or Doucet, whichever you prefer, and also the aforementioned Cruel Intentions. So we'll have those reviews up. And then I meant to go see this past weekend, The Catamounts After the End immersive production, but I, for various reasons, did not get to it. So I'm going to be at that on Wednesday. So I'll have a review of that. And then also Dover Road, I'll be at a little later in the month at Upstart Crow in Boulder. And this is the show we talked about, written by the creator of Winnie the Pooh. It's a really...
The one that destroyed, the character that destroyed this man's family.
That's right.
As I learned from you.
That's right. Which I learned from Wikipedia. But yeah, so looking forward to Dover Road as well. Do you have anything on your radar coming up that we haven't mentioned yet?
I'll be hitting up the final film on the rocks this evening. They're doing Mad Max Fury Road. They've got some local bands who will be opening for that. This is the showing sponsored by Denver Film that is over in Red Rocks. So we had talked about going to film some of these Film on the Rocks earlier this season as a potential thing. And so now I'm going to go. I'm going to go check it out, see if it's worth it to head over to Morrison, face all the traffic and the speed traps over there to try to see the show.
And whatever weather might come your way.
Indeed. And whatever weather might come my way.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, coming up now is my interview with Kirsten Dahl to talk about her world premiere of her play, Della Doucet, at the Vintage Theater. So, all right. Well, we are here with Kirsten Dahl, playwright of Della Doucet. Is that the way you pronounce it?
It's, I use Doucet, but in Taja, Louisiana, I think they use either one, that's where she's from.
All right, Kirsten. Well, thanks for being on the OnStage Colorado podcast. And your play is going to premiere at Vintage Theater starting here pretty soon. So I wanted to talk to you about kind of where it came from and your path to playwriting. And you've got a few other plays under your belt, like Wander Wild and Making Waves. So this is at least your third, fourth, or fifth play, something like that.
Della Doucet is, I would count it among my very early plays because I started it after my first play was a one act that I wrote while I was a student at Playwrights Horizons Theater School in New York. And they picked it for a workshop production, and at that point I was hooked. And then when we moved to LA after that, and I started writing Della Doucet because I was homesick for New York, and it's definitely my New Yorkiest play. But it just took so long to finish it. It took forever.
Well, I think a lot of playwrights and novelists and writers can relate to that. Well, I was looking on your website. It looks like you've been interested in playwriting since you were a kid.
Yeah, it's so weird to me. I don't know where I got that. My mother was a social worker, and my father was a crusty old Swedish immigrant who worked in a factory that manufactured machine parts. And they both love music, though, so I feel like I kind of came to playwriting through music. We had a great music education in my little middle-class public school system. They used storytelling music like Peter and the Wolf and the Peer Gynt Suite. I was infatuated with the Peer Gynt Suite, which is by Edvard Grieg. And I had a couple of numbers from the Peer Gynt Suite in my fifth grade play. That was very exciting to me. I remember thinking that story of Peer Gynt that the music tells, who's basically a scoundrel and has colorful adventures all over the world, that would make a good play. And I did not realize Henry Gibson had already written it.
Well, and you've also written, you published at least one novel. So what do you think is harder to do, a play or a novel? Or Are
Well,
they tied?
actually, the novel is not published. I did get a great agent for it, and she was not able to sell it.
Okay.
But I, uh, I think novels are easier. Playwriting is a very tough field. You have to do everything with dialogue.
Yeah.
Another reason why I don't understand why I do it.
Why are you not a talker?
No, I love talking,
Hmm.
and I think dialogue is my strength. But it is hard to create the world of a play just through dialogue with really no narrative. But it's also really fun. And then when you get to work with the actors and you see it come alive, that's really fun. So I think I'm in it for the fun.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see your words come to life on stage, I'm sure.
It is.
So, where did the idea for this story come from? So, this is based in New York City's art world in the early '80s, right?
Yes, it was. It came out of my experiences working day jobs in New York. I was going to playwriting classes at night, and Della was inspired by one of my bosses, who was kind of a Southern belle. I was in my early 20s. She was about 10 years older than me, and she was divorced and from Louisiana. And she had a much better social life than I did. She was so pretty and charming, and men were lining up at the office to take her out to lunch. I was not a good employee. I wasn't disciplined, and I got myself in trouble at the office, taking very long lunch hours. And my boss stood up for me, which was so incredible. She was no Scarlett O'Hara. She really cared about people.
Huh.
And the memory of her stayed with me after we moved to LA. She started talking in my head, and then all these other characters joined in. And that was, in a sense, that play almost wrote itself, because living in New York is like living in a play. People are just larger than life characters. Having grown up on Long Island, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. What town in Long Island did you grow up on? And
I grew up in Connecticut, actually, a little middle-class suburb outside of Hartford, which is kind of the Midwestern part of Connecticut, I think. But it was not much like New York. When I moved to New York, I was in a state of shock, because there was a lot of adversity, but people were so interesting. They were so verbal and hilariously funny in a way.
yes. So this is a really long gestation. So Della Doucet is the winner of Vintage Theater's 2023 New Play Festival. So what inspired you to submit it to this little theater in Colorado?
Well, first of all, it was finally finished. I workshopped at Lighthouse Writers with my friend Melissa McCarl, who's a wonderful local playwright. And I also started a workshop with Melissa that met in my living room, and we worked on the play there. And then I had access to these wonderful actors in Denver, like, Kelly and Andrew Uhlenhop, Mark Collins. They'd come in and read our new work for us. And it really helped develop the play. Finally, I reached a point where I thought it was finished, but most theaters were not producing romantic comedies. There's been a long preference for much darker, social commentary in the theater. And Vintage said their theme was romantic comedy. Even though Della isn't your typical rom-com, it's a bittersweet story, and it does have social commentary. I submitted it anyway, and to my amazement, it won.
Yeah, that's great. And so what is your so playwrights differ in how much they want to be involved in an actual production. Some of them are really close to the director and watching rehearsals, and some of them are just like don't just let me know when opening night is. Where do you fall in that continuum?
So far, I think it depends on the director. I remember a production I had in LA where they were producing my satiric comedy. It was called Bamberwood, and for a while, the director and leading lady seemed to be headed in the wrong direction, like they were trying to turn it into a Shakespearean tragedy. And I felt like I had to be there all the time for course correction.
Uh-huh.
And this production, Paul Jackwith is just, he really gets the play. I think he's a really good director, and the cast is wonderful. I feel like I'm in safe hands, and I had definitely gone into rehearsals and tweaked lines and made some cuts and things, but I feel pretty secure with them.
That's great. I don't have the cast list here, so I don't know who's in it. How many people are in the play?
That's a good question. I think it's 6. There's that.
So compared to the version of Della Doucet that you submitted to the vintage competition, how similar is this? Was there many tweaks between then and now as it gets close to opening?
It's that. Luckily, the play was finished by then. It had been through so many years of tweaks already. I think it was tweaked enough. Everything that I had to do was pretty minor.
Okay, so that makes it a little easy. And have you been watching some of the rehearsals?
Oh yeah, I'm so moved by the rehearsals. I mean, the actors are so talented, and I don't know. I find it to be a very moving experience going to these rehearsals. I haven't done this for a while.
Uh-huh.
I think my last staged reading was right before the pandemic, and it just feels great to be doing it again. I just love it.
That's great. And so are you kind of staying in Denver for a little while?
Yes. Yeah, I've been traveling a lot this year, but no more. We're staying put for the rest of the year.
Okay. And where do you call home now?
We live in Wash Park.
Oh, you're in Denver. Okay, I wasn't sure. From your bio, you're kind of all over the place.
Yeah,
Santa Monica.
I also do journalism, and I've written a lot of stories about. I'm obsessed with Wash Park. So, I mean, I've written a story about the sea monsters that lurk in the lakes of Washington Park. The origins of the park. On my last piece about the park was what underlies the park. Apparently, there's a whole Cretaceous layer full of dinosaurs, possibly.
And where do you publish these pieces?
Some little local newspapers that are owned by Colorado Community Media, like the Washington Park Profile, Life on Capitol Hill. Well,
going forward, what else? Do you have something else in the pipeline? New play that you're working on, or
I do. I'm close to finishing a play that was inspired by my mother's service in the Navy during World War II. She taught pilots instrument flying in the Navy waves. And of course, she never mentioned this to us when we were growing up. I found the scrapbook after we lost her years ago. It's a scrapbook about her 3 years in the Navy waves. And I just can't believe the huge contribution these women made to World War II and to they link training, which is the name of the specialty my mother had, was it helped defeat the Nazis.
That's
our
amazing.
pilots and the RAF pilots in Britain who were trained to fly in instruments had a big advantage over the Luftwaffe, apparently, and that's one of the things that contributed to their success.
What's the difference between flying using instruments and what's the option?
Just flying with visual rules is.
Okay.
You're just basically doing what Lindbergh did when he crossed the Atlantic, looking out the window. And instrument flying was a revolution because you could fly through bad weather and not crash into a mountainside.
Right, in the dark and.
Yeah, it was really an important innovation. And the link training machine, which was a miniature cockpit that these link training people used, people like my mother used, was originally an amusement park ride. It was, one of those flying cockpit rides. Probably it had like arms and it circled around like things. They still have them today. And the guy who invented the Link trainer was named Link. And he adapted this amusement park ride as a way to train pilots.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and I know today the big military comms thing is Link 16. I'm sure that is connected somehow to that original Link.
Yeah, it probably is.
Well, that sounds like a really interesting one. And I think there's a lot of interest in, especially as all those World War II veterans are mostly gone now. And I think there's a lot of interest in those stories, and especially these unsung women, it was just so crazy the way, like, their contributions were sort of like, I don't know if they were swept under the rug or they just weren't appreciated at all. And so it's great to hear those stories come out.
I totally agree. The contribution of people of color during the war and of women, just, it's like they never happened after the war.
Right.
It was all erased.
Yeah. And would that be a one woman show, or are you thinking?
No, it started out with a cast of 10.
Okay.
It's been through a few readings and some workshopping, so I narrowed the cast list down to 5 or 6, I think. Last count, I think maybe it was 6. But I just learned so much about World War II history and what women did in the war. And, I learned about one of the characters is a Black female pilot who was based on a fantastic woman named Willa Brown, who was one of the earliest female pilots. And she was African American, and she joined the civil, there was some kind of group called the Civil Air Guard, I believe. They patrolled the coasts for German subs during the war, and it was all volunteer work. But the weird thing is the Navy waves didn't even admit Black women until the very last year of the war.
Uh-huh.
They were really missing out.
Yeah. Well, so this is a romantic comedy, Della, Doucet, and would you compare it to? Is it kind of since it's in a gritty art world? Is it kind of a little rough edged? Is it a little R-rated, or is it?
Yeah, it is.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not your usual rom-com.
Uh-huh.
It's I found the art scene in New York so inspiring, and I think when my character Della moves to New York, she's just enthralled by the craziness in the East Village where these galleries were popping up. She says at one point, it's I like it because it's irrational. It's like things out of dreams. And I think I'm sorry, what, Alex?
I was just going to say, is she an artist herself, or is she?
No,
she's
working in graphic design at a crappy ladies magazine as a day job, which is where she meets the artist friend who is also there doing a day job, and she introduces her to the East Village art scene. But she's not an artist herself. She's just, I think she's trying to get to know herself and figure out why she's so drawn to art. And by the end of the play, she thinks she has it figured out, but it's not about being an artist.
Okay.
It is about appreciating artists, though.
Right. And so who's the love interest for Della in the play?
He is a native New Yorker named Sam Levine. He's from the Bronx, and they could not be more opposite in their backgrounds. She says she grew up in the Bayou and he grew up in the Bronx. So,
right.
He's a younger man. Della is very pretty and looks younger than she is, and Sam is 8 years younger, and he is a talented jazz pianist, but his day job is working for his uncle, who's a kind of Trump-like real estate developer. And his real passion is for piano jazz. And they're really drawn to each other, but they're wrong for each other because she already has teenage sons and a husband back down south, and he wants a family and children.
Okay. Yeah, those are some real obstacles.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to mention about this play before we sign off here?
Well, the only thing that we didn't talk about, Alex, I think, was challenges in writing the play. And of course, one of the big challenges was that people were not really producing romantic comedies for a long time. But also, I did not know how to write a full-length play. I had to learn kind of on the job, and I wrote the first act of Della when I moved to LA, and people seemed really interested in it. I had a reading, and I was so frustrating because I didn't know how to write a second act. So I finally put it aside, one of the many times I had to put Della aside, and wrote another play, and then I learned how to write a second act. The secret turned out to be focusing on the conflicts that were kind of simmering in the first act, which seems obvious now, but I didn't have a clue back then. And so that's what enabled me to finish it.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely it's a big difference between writing a scene or one act or something like that, and then a full full length play with all the pieces parts that make that satisfying. It's surprising that romantic comedies are not popular. It seems like there was kind of the golden age, of the Meg Ryan years at least in film. And now it seems like nobody can figure out how to make satisfying romantic comedies anymore.
I've noticed that with movies. Yeah, the ones I've seen were not too good. And I really feel pretty critical of the way a lot of female characters are written in the movies. They're just so monodimensional. We need more female screenwriters, I think.
Right. All right. Well, Della Doucet. I keep saying it. I just want to.
That's okay. Either one is really correct.
Okay. Della Doucet premieres August 23rd at the Vintage Theater and runs through September 22nd. So, Kirsten, Dahl, thanks so much for taking the time to tell us about your play, and congrats on getting it over the finish line.
Thank you, Alex. It was really fun talking.
All right, well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much to Kirsten Dahl to come on and talk about her new play, Della Doucet. So please subscribe to the OnStage Colorado Podcast, wherever you get your audio stuff. Let other people that love theater know about us as well. Be sure to check out all the reviews, news, other podcast episodes, and our full statewide theater calendar on the website at onstagecolorado.com.
As always, we super appreciate that you took some time out of your very busy week to tune in to the latest episode of the OnStage Colorado Podcast. If you feel so inclined, please feel free to rate the show on Spotify, Apple Music, Google, Amazon, or wherever you're listening. We've been seeing a lot of new reviews coming in on those services, and it's awesome that you guys are rating and seem to be enjoying it. If you want to leave a written review on one of those services, like a couple of folks have chosen to do on Apple, then we might read it out on the show. So if you want to be OnStage Colorado Podcast famous, leave us a comment.
Yes, become a friend of the pod. All right. Thanks all. Thank everybody for listening this week. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we'll see you at the show.
Yeah.